You are being criminally trespassed by the Park 35 manager and the owner from this property if you do not live here at this point in time.
And if we don't, that's what you're gonna do?
All right, turn around.
Oh, you're gonna arrest people for giving out free food. That's literally what you're doing now. So we have food here, and people said they needed it, right? For giving out free food, you're gonna arrest people. Let her go. How does that feel? Let her go. We were already packing up. Let her go. We were.
Why is it so hard to do a good deed? With the rising number of people facing food insecurity because of the lack of jobs, fixed incomes, rising rents, aging, and physical and mental disabilities, it would seem that providing free food would be an act that our society would deem worthy of support, an act that would be valued, encouraged, and appreciated. Unfortunately, this is not the case at the apartment complex off Glenwood Rd in Decatur. I'll let members of Food Not Bombs Atlanta tell this story. What were you arrested for?
The charges that I was given were criminal trespass and obstruction. Well, the backstory is there are tenants at the Park 35 apartment complex who have welcomed us as guests to share the food that we get as donations at that complex. And in their lease, like in many apartment complex leases, they're allowed to have guests. Tenants and guests can enjoy common spaces of the property. And so we were there, we've been there for several weeks giving out free food, specifically like fresh produce, things like that, I mean, I can't afford either, it's expensive. And many people vocalize being very grateful for it, and that's the fresh produce that they get each week is that food distribution. And the property management has been very angry about the distribution, not just last week, but like weeks prior. She came up to us, and one of the first things she said was that she was very angry about the tenants' rights flyers that we had.
We've been doing this distro here for several months at this point, but it was only, I want to say 3 or 4 weeks ago that the property manager started to just get upset that we were there.
And what was her reasoning for that?
She just didn't like the literature that we had, and if I have some of the literature I can show you. It essentially it has information on how, on the rights that tenants have, how to get your landlord to fix your property, and she didn't like the fact that she might have to do a little bit more work in her job, basically.
So tell me about your controversial papers here.
We always give out papers. We give out papers everywhere we give out food, and they're just general papers that might help people's lives. They can be anything from where you can get free dental health care to tips for finding apartments if you have a record, to appealing an eviction. Now, maybe you can guess why we have a problem, but as both a tenant and somebody who is part of Food Not Bombs, I find it offensive that general papers printed up by citywide and national groups would be so offensive to them that they would change their minds about allowing residents to actually have access to food. A lot of the kids in this neighborhood don't have access to fresh vegetables or fruit except what we bring. It's just simply not affordable for them. And so we think what we do is important, and we think the information we give out is important. And it's crazy that a private landlord, who apparently is afraid because he knows the conditions of his apartments are poor, would be able to stop people from accessing the food they need.
There wasn't anything in the lease that we found to suggest that the management had the right to override people inviting guests to come use the public space. There's a type of law with leasing particularly that gives some of the property rights of the property owner over to the leasee. That's why your landlord can't just walk into your house, for example, and why they have to put in the lease specific conditions about how and when maintenance can come in. So the landowner may think that they have the right to disinvite anybody from the property, but it does not say that in the lease. I think they might be incorrect in thinking that they can override the resident's decision about having guests in accordance with the conditions in the lease.
Something that's really good, that's helping the community in general, nutrition-wise, food. It's holidays now. People really need, canned goods and fresh fruits and different things like that. So I think it's a wonderful program.
And can you tell me approximately how many meals Food Not Bombs has served to the public?
Food Not Bombs Atlanta has been around for several years. We have 3 distros every week. There's this one here in Decatur. On Fridays we have one in Lakewood, and Sundays we have one in Edgewood. We have quite a few people from those communities come every single week. It's the way that they get their groceries. For a lot of people, the only way that they're able to get fresh food on a weekly basis. So.
Do you intend to keep on doing this?
Oh, yeah.
Here in this location?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's a lot of people who can really benefit from the food that we've got out here, and we don't plan on stopping anytime soon. Just because some manager is telling us that she doesn't like the literature that we're passing out. Because ultimately, food is a basic human right, and we want to get that out to people.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. The management at Park 35 Apartments allowed the members of Food Not Bombs to move off the street and set up their distribution in a designated area in the apartment parking lot. The location, however, was not accessible to residents with mobility issues. They also prevented Food Not Bombs from displaying a sign at the street directing the residents to the food distribution area. Food Not Bombs will continue to distribute groceries at Park 35 Apartments. Supporters are needed every Tuesday at noon. Come to 3529 Robbins Landing Way, Decatur, Georgia.
Right.
About tenant laws.
Tenant laws.
We're not enforcing any tenant laws. We don't enforce tenant laws. We enforce criminal laws. Criminal laws.
Are we
do. No, sir, not at all.
No,
No, sir, not at all.
No, you guys aren't criminal.
No, we're not.
You know that.
Yeah, tenant laws.